Hey, it's LaShonda Henry here, creator of the Unblock Your Blessings 90-Day Challenge, created to help you build your best business, life, and self. We are moving forward with this challenge. I'm so excited to be going through this experience with you and sharing all my lessons learned. I hope you have at this point absolutely sent me an email just to let me know how it's going, your thoughts just thus far. I want to talk about your vision board, what you've put on it, what you're doing to move towards that Be Blessed vision board, to actualize those ideas and dreams, really make them real so that you can say, girl, these are my blessings. I definitely want you to do that. And of course, comment at unblockyourblessings.com. So we're not only talking one-on-one, but within the community. So it's a larger conversation, helping each other, being supportive, moving forward to build our best businesses, lives, and selves. So, of course, you know how these challenges go. We start with a choice, something that I believe you need to choose to do so that you can be in control of your destiny and what you want to accomplish. And then we talk a little bit during the chat session. I've got some wonderful stories to share about things I've gone through and the personal stories of people who I hold near and dear to me, because I believe every experience is valuable. There's a life lesson to learn, and whether you're learning it through your own experiences or from others, it helps you move forward and unblock those blessings. And of course, after the choice and the chat, there's the challenge. That one thing that I want you to really think about, and not just think about, but do and implement, so that you can say, I'm one step closer to unblocking my blessings, making things happen for myself, not just in these 90 days, but beyond. Okay? So today, I want you to choose the rock versus the pillow. Now, this may sound a little self-explanatory. Maybe you know where I'm going here with this, but keep listening so you can find out. Obviously, if you think about where you rest your head, a rock is really uncomfortable, right? It's just not the thing. But you want to put your head on that pillow, especially if you got that nice, down, relaxing pillow. I think hotel pillows, especially the 5-star ones, they're like clouds. You put your head down in that, and you never want to get up. But the rock is hard. It's real hard. And today I want you to choose a rock versus a pillow. Something that's going to be a challenge versus something that's going to be the same old thing. Something that you know that is guaranteed to be comfortable, that is guaranteed to make you feel like, I don't want to get up. But in order for you to not just get up, but to reach the limits and break through the glass ceilings, you got to go for that rock. There's one particular quote that's kind of one of my keeper quotes. I hold it near and dear because it's very true to me. It says as follows: your next level begins where your comfort level ends. Let me say that again. Your next level begins where your comfort level ends. So maybe you want to take note of that and stick it on your Be Blessed vision board. I absolutely recommend you do it because it's true. Chances are the thing that we want most in our life, that we're like, this is what I define as success. This is when I say I've been blessed and I've arrived. This is what it is. Surrounding that thing is a bunch of challenges, and not just a bunch of challenges that are like physical or circumstances or people, but I think it's kind of like a bunch of mental blocks and challenges around that thing, and fears. Oh my God, fears. Like, I'm afraid to do this. I'm afraid to do that. What if I do this and it's just not going to work? There's so many fears that are kind of cocooning the thing that's going to get you to the next level. And there's only one way to get there. You got to break through it. You got to lie on that rock versus that pillow, because your next level begins where your comfort level ends. So let me talk to you about that for a minute. Driving. We're going to chat about driving and my experience with that. I have always wanted to drive because, like I said to you, I realized at some point in my life, very early actually, that while I would want and absolutely love for there to be all these wonderful people around helping me and supporting me to do one thing or another, there are a lot of things I got to do for myself. I was very clear on that when I was young. And even though my hubby has helped me kind of remember to remind myself some of those truths back into my head, it fundamentally has always been there for me. And so I think about when I was young, I was in about, I want to say about the fourth or fifth grade. Forgive me because sometimes time um, is not my best strength. About the fourth or fifth grade, my father, he died of a heart attack. And we became a single parent household. And I was angry about that for a while. But that's a whole other story altogether. I remember that when I was younger and my father was around, and I'd be in his very old station wagon, and the ceiling, I don't know, the liner was hanging down, so we being silly kids would kind of pull them down and say, look at the boobies. But I remember my dad's whole station wagon, and he made it work. But when he passed, and all the wonderfulness that passed with him of having that person there to protect me and to guide me was gone. So was gone the person who was going to teach me how to drive, the person who was going to walk me down the aisle, the person who was going to go up to that guy and say, you're not taking out my daughter until I give you the third degree. All of those things were gone when he was gone. I remember in high school, I found out that in my high school, unlike many in Brooklyn, I went to Brooklyn Technical High School, we had the opportunity to do driver's ed. So I absolutely jumped on it because I was like, I don't want to spend my whole life taking the bus or the train. If you've ever lived and visited New York City, you'll know exactly why I didn't want to spend my life that way. But I was deathly afraid because, again, I didn't have anyone to help me with that, and no one else drove, and my mother didn't drive, so who was going to help me do this? But okay, fine, I'm going to go and take driving lessons at school. So I did that. I got my driver's permit, but didn't get my driver's license. And then when I went to college, I said, well, look, so many things are going to happen. I always kind of have this kind of foresight about the future, right? So when I was in college, I was like, I know I'm going to get to a point where I'm going to be like my mom. I'm going to have a 9-to-5. Maybe I'm going to have a kid or a hubby, and I'm not going to have enough time to really get my license. I got my permit, suck it up deal, go and get the license. I'm like, oh God, I don't want to crash. I don't want to die. I don't want to do anything crazy on the road, New York, and people yelling and honking and the stress level. And I said, but I got to get my license. So I sucked it up, and whatever little money I had, I started taking driver's lessons. And I passed and I got my license. So I got my license when I was in college, but I was still afraid. So I started working. And I remember the day I got my license, my instructor said to me, now don't let it be that you don't drive. I want you to go and drive. God knows he didn't know that I had gone from a permit to a license and would not touch a car again for at least 5 years. Didn't buy a car, didn't touch a car. I worked as a counselor for several years, and we would take the kids on different trips to colleges and what have you. And they would always say, well, LaShonda, do you want to drive? You got your license. You want to drive the kids up there? And I'd be like, oh, no, I'm not driving nobody's kids. You crazy. Because I was so afraid of that, even though I knew that a part of me being in control of my own life and having the flexibility to go where I want and do what I want was to have that car and to drive. Because I hadn't driven in so long, I was still panicky and I had all those fears. Fast forward, I finally moved from New York to North Carolina. Of course, New Yorkers don't need to drive. North Carolinians, that's a whole other story. And for the first couple of years, I was really homebound and limited to the bus, which comes once an hour. In my small town, we had 5 buses. Not 5 bus numbers, but literally 5 buses in the whole town. So, if I didn't get that bus or that cab, forget about it. And there is no train. That doesn't exist here unless you're taking the Greyhound or the Amtrak or whatever that is. So those are my options for transportation. The immediate option, more often than not, was me and my hubby and my son in his stroller, which we called the Escalade. It was actually an Eddie Bauer stroller. And we would just walk and walk. We would walk over train tracks. We would walk on the side of the road. We would walk over the car dealerships and the grass and the concrete. We walked because we didn't have a car. And it was a situation where I had some fears about it, even though I said I still want to learn how to drive. I knew how to drive, but at that time I haven't driven in years. So it's almost like teaching an old dog new tricks. I would just always say to him, I don't want to have my son be 5 years old and I'm still walking. I can't do that. We've got to make a change. I've got to do something different. I remember one time, and I've told you a lot about my story, so hopefully you've been listening consistently. But in the beginning, I talked about the frustrations of my hubby's court case and lots of different things that we went through in that case. I was penny by penny, dollar by dollar, saving a couple $1,000s to put down on a car until, for whatever reason, I had to pay off people for the case to support the witnesses and all this other stuff that the lawyer need. And I had to basically take all those dollars, the thousands of dollars that I'd been saving so hard for to finally get a car for myself, mind you. I had to give it away. And so I remember the day that I was giving the person on the other line my debit card number, and my voice was cracking, and the tears were in my eyes. And of course she couldn't see this, but I mean, it was just a hard experience. So when I tell you that you've got to choose action over anger, it's something that resonates with me. Now, why I say here, I'm talking about today, fears and really choosing the rock over the pillow, because that was just another piece of the story. Because yes, I was afraid to drive, and yes, even though I took a few steps, I still kind of had these mental blocks that were really limiting me. But eventually, there was one day in particular that it was pouring rain outside, pouring rain, and we were in the supermarket and we were buying stuff, and I had my son and my hubby, and we had all this stuff, and I was like, I want to go home. He's like, we have to wait. We have to stand here and wait until the rain stops. And I'm like, I'm tired. I want to go home. I was pissed. I was angry, and I was walking in the rain. I was trying to rush to get home, and I've got my son, and I'm trying to cover him up, and the Escalade stroller has got all our bags on it, and I used to take duffel bags with me because for some reason in my small town, nobody knows about shopping carts. If you're a city girl, you take a shopping cart, but those things don't exist here. So that was my Escalade, right? And I was crying, and I was angry, and I was wet, and it was pouring, and I was like, this is it. I'm done. I'm absolutely done with this process of whatever it is that's holding me back. I'm going to go and get the car. I am scared. I don't want to run into anybody. I don't want to have an accident. I don't want to go on the highway. All of these things. But my son is not going to go through I am not going to go through this again. I will be doggone if I will be walking in somebody's rain in the middle of the night with some duffel bags and some groceries ever again. And so I did what I told you before when I said you take that one small step versus one long delay. You think about it at this point, I'm talking about, I think I was maybe 20, I want to say somewhere between 28 and 29. I'm horrible with dates. I'm absolutely horrible with dates when that particular instance in my life happened. But you think about that 16-year-old girl that got a permit to 27, 28, how long of a delay that was of me blocking my blessing, and how many things I could have done for myself if I'd said, okay, I could get a car, I can do this myself, I can, all that time. And then at that point I said, I took a small step, right? I took a small step, and I said, you know what? I'm going to go in the Yellow Pages, and I'm going to find a local driving instructor, somebody who's going to help me make this happen. And I did. So I got my first lesson. I remember I got in the car, and he was like, okay, so you're going to check your blind spot, fix your mirrors, and then you're going to start. And I was like, okay. I've totally freaked him out. I was like, look, I haven't done this in years. I haven't been behind a car since I got my license in college. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I gotta drive, and I gotta make it happen. And I remember he said to me, girl, you freaked me out. That first lesson, you totally freaked me out. But you okay? We gotta go. And he turned out to be one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. And, he taught me how to get gas for the first time. Again, I don't have a father, nor unfortunately do I have uncles around me who can help me do this stuff. It's a man's world, not in my world. It's a woman's world in my world. It's a lot of women. And a lot of them don't drive as far as the city folk go. So, he taught me how to get the gas, how, to get on the highway, all of these wonderful things. And I went through the process with him. And then I said, okay, I took that one small step, right? I was able to transfer over my license. So now I was an official North Carolina driver. And I said to him, okay, well, I don't want to stop because the last time I did this, I stopped for years and years and years. I want to rent a car. He was like, okay, rent a car. It's like, but I'm scared. Because like I said, for me, one of my blocks is a lot of times I believe I cannot do things on my own, even though I somehow manage to make things happen for myself. We all have our own false truths, our own personal myths. And so I said, okay, well, I don't want to rent the car and drive by myself. Can you go with me? And he was like, okay, fine, I'll absolutely go with you. So he went with me and I rented the car, and I had the most amazing weekend ever. My hubby and I, we went absolutely everywhere. I went to Sam's Club. I got a card. I'm literally telling you all these personal things about my life, just so you know. I'm just keeping it completely real. I said, look, I don't know when I'm renting a car again, so we're in Sam's Club. Buy everything that you see. Because we don't know when we're getting a car again. But that was the next step for me. You know, I had an absolutely fabulous time. Then, you know, the frustration of taking all the savings that I was working on to put into the car, to put into his case. And then he was like, oh, it's going to be over soon. It's going to be over soon. And then when we got to that pivotal point where I told you I was on the floor crying and I said to my mom, I can't take it anymore. He says, I love you. I appreciate you. You've done absolutely everything you can do to stay the course with this particular case. You know what, whatever you got, you know, I know you've been holding off on the car because you had to use the money, and then I said, you know, you want to hold off until the case is over. Whatever you got, let's do it. So I was a woman on a mission. I got on that plane from New York City after that failed court case event. I said, I'm not going to let this course again stop me. I don't know when this case is going to be fixed, but I'm getting my car. I went home. I looked online. I found the first dealership that I found a car that I absolutely wanted. I personally love small cars because I'm a short person. And so I wanted to get a Volkswagen. I said, this is going to be my dream car. But not only that, because I would say to my hubby, he'd say, well, what kind of car do you want? And I said, look, at this point, I just want something with 4 wheels. So I literally remember seeing the car and saying, okay, I'm going to go home and I'm going to buy that car. I'm going to put on whatever I got. I'm going to buy that car. I got to the dealership and there was a couple there with their son who was going off to college. And minutes before I got there, they bought my car. I was absolutely devastated. I was in tears as I walked home, literally walked home, because of course I didn't have a car. That again, testimony, my testimony. I didn't give up. I didn't say, you know, my luck sucks. You know, why would they buy my car? That was my car. After doing some research and more research, as it turns out, I learned that, because I don't know much about cars, that Volkswagens, that particular line, they are very expensive to maintain when they break down. And we only have one Volkswagen dealership, which meant that would have been a lot of money for me. So I said, okay, that was like it was an unblocked blessing, but it really was a blessing in disguise because I didn't end up with a car that I probably wouldn't be able to afford to fix in the future. So we moved forward and my hubby was like, okay, take a break. And I was like, no, I'm not taking a break. I'm getting a car this week. By Friday, I will be driving in something. It's going to happen. The fare, I don't even know where the fare went, but it's going to happen. And so we went to dealerships and we went to other dealerships and we just so many things. So ultimately, we got a car. We went to a dealership and I said, why am I even here? I need a used car. I was in a new car dealership. Like, why am I even here? I said, well, just see what happens. God knows. And I end up getting a car at the Mazda dealership. How wonderful is that? It happened to be a Toyota, but it was at the Mazda dealership. I got a car. We were in there for hours and they were going through paperwork and credit checks. And I was like, dude, I'm sleepy. He was like, you can't leave. We're going to get it done. We were there for hours and I finally got my car. Of course, I said, road trip. And we went over to his mother's house. That was my first 2-hour drive on the highway. I was absolutely panicked. And as I'm driving that first road trip, I remember that my hubby was always in my head. Because when I would drive, new drivers, we have a bunch of anxiety. As I would drive relatively slow, but my turns were the worst. And I would never know when to turn. It wasn't the right turn. So I was supposed to make one particular turn and I was going like 10, 15 minutes down. He was just like, you know, okay, make a U-turn, go into that house, go into that side. And I was like, I was not going. And I just kept hearing him go, make your turn, make your turn. And my thing was, I didn't want to slow down because I didn't want the people in the back of me. I'm like, the people in the back of me are going to honk because I'm slowing down. He's like, you have to slow down. You have to make a turn. But I couldn't understand that concept because I was a new driver. I was freaking out. People in the back of me, him talking to me. And then I just went, bust a turn, busted my side of my car. Okay, so it wasn't as bad as I make it out to be. I actually broke the windshield, and thank God for retractable side mirrors, because my mirror went in, but it smashed in such a way that the mirror itself broke. And so, thank God everybody in the car was safe. The car was not damaged. It was just the glass on that one side of the windshield. No scratches, no dents, no nothing like that. No crashing anybody. I turned, but I turned so sharp and so fast that I hit a pole. And the pole didn't fall. It was fine too. God was truly with us. And I've got a Bible in every car because he is always with me when I drive. And so after the anxiety and the panic and the freaking out, you know, my hubby goes, so do you still want to do this drive? It's 2 hours. What do you want to do? You want to go home? And I said, no, we're going. No, we're going. So about 20 minutes away is a local AutoZone. We went there, and you know, he was, my hubby says, well, what can we do? And he's like, hey, get one of these windshield mirrors. It's like $6, and then go to the Toyota dealership and they'll put in a new one. And to this day, I still have that $6 mirror in the side of my now fully owned and paid off car, because I believe that the first scratch is the worst, but it's also, for me, that test that's now a testimony. And so he'll be like, aren't you going to Toyota to fix that? And I'm like, no, it's mine. And so we went to AutoZone, we fixed that. And in the middle of the night, we finally made it to his mother's house. It's really like a 2-hour drive, but my first time driving it, I think it took me about 3 hours to go on the highway and make it happen. But I had to break through the fear. I had to break through the fear. So, of course, every time Mums gets in the car with me, she's tickled pink, because she's like, I remember when you were so afraid to drive on the highway, when you were afraid, because there were, that's a whole other story together, but I can tell you about the first time I drove at night, and I was freaking everybody out in the car because I was so dark. How am I going to get, I can't see. Just so many different fears, but you have to choose that rock over that pillow. Because now I can't tell you how many things have happened in my life because I drive and because I have a car and my son, and how many things I can do with him and for him for school or for activities. And the first time we drove to Disney World and what that was like, it was an amazing experience. The first time, you know, I did all of these different firsts. The first time I had my event or drove to Charlotte, or I'm like, it was just, it opened up a whole new world for me. As far as what I could do, I couldn't create an event that was 3 hours away, my first Power Circle conference or She Rocks. So I couldn't do those things if I didn't have a car to drive to the event. So for me, fighting those fears and all the things that have been holding me back for years, from getting the permit to getting the license to actually realizing I could drive, and then renting a car to buying a car to then having to pay off the car to finally paying off the car to now being comfortable. Like, I sit in my car, I take my shoes off, I'm drinking, I'm good, and God willing, you know, I will remain as much of a safe driver as I am today, 10 years from now, because I want to make sure that everyone is safe, myself and everybody who's driving around me. But I had to choose to unblock the blessing by choosing the rock over the pillow. It was scary, it was uncomfortable, and even when we want things, sometimes we don't really want them. I say that to say, yes, I wanted to drive and I wanted my own car, but for so many years, I couldn't have really wanted it because I wasn't pushing towards it. But I said, look, my son cannot be walking or in somebody's stroller with his legs hanging off of the stroller. I absolutely hate that, by the way, when you go to the mall and the kids are way too big, but they're still in the stroller. He can't be going through these experiences. He can't grow up like I grew up, having to take bus and train and walk and struggle. He's got to be in a position where I make his life one step better than mine was. You know, my mom did absolutely everything that she could do for me. Now she put me in a position to go to an Ivy League school and be a self-employed, successful woman entrepreneur. I need to do everything that I can do for my son. And so I broke it. I broke the fear. I chose the rock over the pillow. And now the thing that scared me the most is the thing that I love the most and I'm most comfortable with. So that is my chat. Of course, you know what comes next is the thing that you absolutely have to love, even if you hate it. The challenge. What is that thing right now? Or rather, I should say two things, because it could be different things. What is that thing that is really your rock, that challenge that you're afraid of, that you keep avoiding, but you know it's somewhere deep down that if you can break through it, you can see the unblessing start to unfold. What is that rock for you? And what is that pillow? That could be something completely unrelated, but maybe whatever's happening with that pillow bleeds into the rock. What is that thing that is just absolutely comforting for you? And because of that comfort, you're not quite doing and being the person who is completely blessed, because you're settling for the same old, same old. Okay, so I want you to think about that today. And as I say this, I think about myself when I made the decision to work for myself. And I say, you know, because I'm a mom, broke is not an option. When I was self-employed, yeah, I could do my side hustles on the side, but I knew my 2-week paycheck was coming in. When I was just me, there was no 2-week paycheck. And so, you know, I came to the realization that when I was working, my job made me complacent, because yeah, I could do little things in my business and then say, well, I can't do it because I'm so busy, I've got my 9 to 5. But really, I didn't have to push through it. I didn't have to really figure out how to make it work. I could just spend a couple of dollars and do just enough to make me feel good, like I was in business. But I wasn't in business until I was pushing hard. I was hustling hard. I was like, lights got to stay on, bills got to get paid, baby need to be fed. So for me, that was something else that was kind of like a rock versus a pillow. My job, my 9 to 5 definitely was a comfort zone for me. But when I moved, things changed, and I took that rock and I made it into something that was comfortable. I got some grass and some leaves and I cushioned it until it was bearable enough for me. So that is your challenge for today. I hope you are enjoying the Unblock Your Blessings 90-day challenge. More to come. Take care. Bye.